Up next on Inside the SCCA, Climbing the Ladder with Kamden Hibbitt.
Make their head drop.
Welcome to episode 201 of Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski. Joining me today is a young driver, up-and-coming driver, and looking forward to catch up with him. I've been hoping to have him on the show for a bit here, and we're making it happen tonight. Kamden Hibbitt is here with me. Kamden, how you doing, my friend?
Pretty good. I'm excited to be here. It's an honor, and happy to share my story with all the viewers, and it's great to finally get a chance to catch up with you.
It's great to have you here with us tonight. We start every show with the exact same question, and so here it comes. How did you get mixed up with this crazy sport that we love?
So I actually got started in 2022 in the Mazda paddock by meeting David Cook, who was formerly with Mazda Motorsports, now the CEO of Racing Prodigy, and he actually hooked me up with a Spec MX5 test in 2022 before Spec MX5 had joined SCCA as a national class, and from there it kind of just kept on growing. Ran Spec Miata in 2023 and was able to go to the Mazda shootout in 2023 for Spec MX5, and was lucky enough to be selected as one of the 3 factory drivers for 2024. And had a really good run in 2024 Hoosier Super Tour points in the Spec MX5 series as a Mazda factory driver, and it just kept it just really kept growing throughout the 2 or 3 years that I've been here, and now getting opportunities to run more Spec MX5 for another full season, and jumping in Radical SR1 with Racing Prodigy and the Williams ESports opportunities. It's been a whirlwind of the last year or two for sure.
I bet. Now, it didn't start in 2022 though. Let's go way back. The Wayback Machine for you is a lot shorter than the Wayback Machine for me. But let's go to the Wayback Machine. Where did it really start though? Because you didn't start in Mazda car. You started somewhere else, right?
Yeah. So I started in quarter midgets. So most kids that come into Spec MX5 or Spec Miata now come from karting.
Right.
I came from the oval side of that in quarter midgets, and it's a really rare transition. Not a lot of people do it. I was actually one of the first to have ever done it that I am aware. It's just not a very popular thing to go. Most people that come out of quarter midgets will go to sprint cars or 600s or all the dirt racing stuff.
Right.
And when I met David, it kind of shot me down this path. So I started in quarter midgets. I ran 8 or 9 years of that. Was very successful with the Hibbitt Motorsports family-owned team. We had 120 feature wins, 20 series championships. We had a lot of success over those 8 years, and I learned a lot in that series. A lot of people think that it's oval racing, not a lot is going to translate to road course racing in Spec Miata or Spec MX5. There's a lot that translates.
Yeah.
Yes, some of the racecraft is different because obviously you're turning left and right, but there is a lot of the driving techniques, the trail braking, general lines that you can take, weight transfer, all of that stuff is you can learn in stuff like quarter midgets to take it into Spec MX5 and into SCCA.
So, for those who might not know, explain to the viewers what a quarter midget is.
So, for those that have, I'm trying to think of an SCCA class to compare it to.
There really isn't.
There really isn't a great one to compare it to.
But it's a sprint car. But
it's a sprint. It's basically a sprint car, only a quarter of the size.
Right.
So they run on 1/20th of a mile ovals, and they're about the size of your general card table that you may have at home.
Right.
They're They're really small cars, and it's really fast paced. The fastest lap I ever ran was 4.98 seconds at Kalamazoo Speedway.
Wow.
And it turns some really fast laps, and it teaches you reaction time, and it teaches you how to be really, really smart with what you're doing because of how fast everything happens.
What the motors are? Is it a Briggs motor?
So I ran two classes. One class was a Honda 160cc.
Okay.
And the other is a Briggs motor. Yeah.
So it must have been the 160cc that did that 4-second lap, right?
No, it was actually the Briggs motor.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Briggs car.
That's
the
just
Briggs World Formula
crazy.
makes about 14 or 15 horsepower, I believe.
Okay.
Which obviously doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you're only carrying around, I think you're 240 pounds, I believe, for the World Formula. So obviously you're not moving a ton of weight.
Right.
So you can do some pretty quick lap times.
So racing on the dirt, I'm going to guess when it rains at an SCCA race, you get a really big smile, right?
Well, so I actually didn't race on dirt. I was all pavement.
Okay.
No, so I was all pavement. So quarter midgets run on dirt. Our family was too clean for that, so we stayed on the pavement. And yeah, so I never ran dirt. I definitely would have enjoyed trying it once or twice, but I think even if we would have stayed the oval route, I think we would have done something like Legends or late models, something like that. I've done dirt racing on the sim, and it just hasn't really been my thing. I've enjoyed the pavement way more, but I do find, going back to the rain point, I do find it fun to race in the rain because it just adds another element.
Right.
It is a lot of fun it kind of takes me back to my roots because quarter midgets, you have to have really fast hands and you're really aggressive. And I feel like that's how you kind of how you have to drive when it rains.
Right.
You gotta really push the car to the limit and figure out how to get right up to the limit without overstepping your bounds, you know?
Sure. So when normally from quarter midgets, what's the normal step up from there to midgets or sprint cars typically?
Yeah, a lot of people will go to midgets. 600s is another big thing, which is basically like if quarter midgets are like a quarter size of a sprint car, 600s are kind of like right in the middle.
Okay.
So those are all dirt racing though. Majority of kids that come out of quarter midgets will go dirt racing. So it's really uncommon for people to go road racing of all things.
Right.
I'd say probably 25% of people go racing pavement oval. Probably 74% go dirt racing, and the final 1% is doing something else. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
It is very uncommon to see people go this route, which I think is why it's really fun for me to tell my story, because it's not one that people have heard very often, if at all. You know what I mean?
Right. So when you made the transition, you said it was a meeting. Was it a chance meeting that kind of pointed you in the direction of road racing?
Yes, it was actually at PRI in 2022, I believe. We were standing at the Mazda MX-5 Cup booth, and I was just looking in the car, just kind of being nosy, just because I'm a race fan at 12 years old, you know. And David Cook comes over, and we start talking for a while. We probably had about an hour-long conversation, and ended up going down the path of, here's my email, let's stay in touch. And in the coming months, that evolved into getting a test at Carolina Motorsports Park in a Spec MX-5 car. And from there, it kind of just kept on developing. I got one more test at the end of 2022. And then we bought our own Spec Miata and ran Spec Miata in 2023. And it just kind of kept on growing from there.
So when you go to PRI, how old are you?
I was 12 when I went to PRI.
Okay.
I'm 15 now.
So I feel so old. So when you're 12 going to PRI, are you going there looking for to grow your future in the sport? What was the purpose for going to PRI at that moment?
So the truth is, the purpose was to go find a seat for a Legends car. We were trying to figure out
like an actual seat, or to find a ride in a midget
like a physical seat.
Okay.
We were trying to we had been talking about going Legends racing on the pavement up at Barberton Speedway. It's about 2 hours north of our house, and we were actually going to PRI to talk to Kirky and Butler and all those people about figuring out seat fittings. And it just so happened that we did our seat fittings and we just started walking around since we were there for the day, and we're just looking at cars, going to the SCCA booth and the MX5 Cup booth, and finding all these cool race cars to go sit in and just kind of have fun and be a race fan. And it just so happened that I ended up meeting David and Keith Dalton, who is the MX5 Cup series director. And that has completely changed my career trajectory from oval and Legends racing to now full-time sports cars.
Cool. So if you're watching right now at home, click the subscribe button, click the like button. If you'd like to ask Kamden a question, drop it in the chat, and I will relay some of those questions. So feel free to do that. Would love to have you do that.
Absolutely.
So you're 15 now. Wonderfully well spoken. This has been, I mean, we're 10 minutes into the conversation, and clearly on top of things. When you're 12, I'm trying to go back to this conversation, and you're at PRI. You're not there looking for a ride, and it's got to be pretty impressive to me, it's pretty impressive that you were able to have whatever conversation you had at that moment at age 12 to then lead to start the process to lead to where you're at today. Were you just like, I'm a kid having a good time having a conversation when you're there?
Yeah, it was, my dad was there also, and he was involved in that conversation as well.
Got it. Okay.
And I remember thinking back to that day, and like, I even told my dad, like, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
I had never had that kind of conversation before. And we had been up all day. It was like 6 o'clock or something in Indianapolis. We'd been on our feet all day, and I was like, I'm ready to go to the hotel. And I had told him that like once or twice during that conversation. And I remember like thinking back on like how much that conversation meant to my career. And what David must have been thinking to this 12-year-old that's like, I want to go home, but he also could be a really good race car driver.
Yeah.
And I think back on that now, and it's like thinking about myself having that conversation is really funny, because that conversation would probably go miles different if I had it tomorrow,
right.
Just because of my age and how much I've been able to grow up since then in a way.
Yeah.
But yes, it was definitely an interesting conversation to have at 12 years old. And it was one that honestly, I didn't even know what was going on. I thought it was just a conversation to have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I didn't know that there was really, I didn't really know that there was going to be a consequence or positive consequence to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you hear the stories of, Lewis Hamilton going to either Toto Wolff or Ron Dennis at age 12 and saying, I'm going to drive for you someday. And I think it was William Byron who basically had the same conversation with Rick Hendricks. And I just love to hear the origin story of how these things come together. And, if you don't come from either a wealthy family, or you don't have a name like Andretti or whatever, to get in front of someone at a show like PRI and to have that just chance conversation, even with Dad helping you out, and all of that, it takes a lot of, I always talk about the package. Okay, so you got to be able to talk well. You got to have, you got to be somewhat good looking. That doesn't hurt. You got to be able to drive a race car pretty darn fast, because if you don't, then you'll get one shot and be done. But if you don't get that chance moment, if you don't have that one moment of conversation, a lot of times, it makes it so much harder to be able to have those opportunities. So that's why I love these stories, to hear how people stumbled upon this or stumbled into that. And the fact that it wasn't so intentional for you, that you really weren't going to PRI trying to get your next ride. You were trying to get a literal seat to sit in your next car. I think that's just so cool. So,
and that's the fun thing. Like we listened to Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast, and you hear these stories also, and it's like no entry story is the same.
No.
You could talk to any driver in the IMSA paddock, the SCCA paddock, the IndyCar paddock, and nobody will have ever gotten there on the same path unless your name is Andretti or, like you said, and have a lot of money. And it is really cool to hear all the stories and how people get to where they are. And it's just a really cool moment and really cool stories to hear.
When did you start simming?
So I started on the sim in I think I got the account in 2017.
Okay.
I started taking it seriously in probably 2022, really, when I started going to getting into the Mazda stuff.
Right.
That's really when I started taking it seriously and really started using it as a training tool instead of a video game.
Right.
In 2017, I would have been 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
So I wasn't really using it to help me as much as have fun. Now it is definitely more of a training tool than a video game.
So from that first conversation at PRI, when did you get the first test? What was the time period?
The PRI was in December of 2021. My first test was in April of 2022.
Okay.
At Carolina Motorsports Park. And then there was one more in August of 2022.
Okay. So that first test was in a Spec Miata or an MX-5 Cup car?
It was in a Spec MX-5.
Spec MX-5. Okay. So You're now, no more than 13 years old, right?
Yeah.
You've driven quarter midgets.
Yeah.
Have you ever driven a car? Okay.
No.
See where I'm going with this.
So the funny thing is I was still 12 when I had my first when that test came around.
Wow.
My birthday is April, so the test would have been in March. That makes sense now.
Okay.
Yeah, so the test would have been in March because my birthday is in April. So, yeah, I had never driven a car, let alone a manual. So we took my aunt's Toyota MR2 out to a local parking lot and learned how to drive a manual because I've never done that before. So that is where I learned to drive my first manual, was in a parking lot here in Central Ohio. And we drove down to CMP 2 weeks later, and I drove my first SMX full-size car and my first race car at the same time that weekend.
So from that conversation at PRI, when did they invite you to the test?
So the test was by myself. It wasn't a private event. It was with I don't remember if it was actually with SCCA or NASA.
Okay.
At that time, I believe I was too young to be with SCCA, actually. Sure. But I believe that was like an HPDE day or like a track day. So that was just myself. I believe that those conversations started in February, so about a month or two before the test actually happened.
So you're, I'm guessing, spending a lot of time on the sim at that point, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of sim time and a lot of time trying to figure out how to heel toe. That's the big thing in Spec MX-5 and Spec Miata. If you don't do that in those two classes, you're likely going to be at least a couple tenths off just because you're missing time in the downshift. So at that point, I knew going into those tests, like that was one of the big things that I had to learn right away.
Right. And I'm trying to think of my time on the sim. Because most of us on the sim are paddle shifting, so we're not really heel towing that much. That must have been fun to try to learn. Yeah, so I learned on the sim, but I learned the technique on the sim, but it's not the same. Right.
I will say that.
Yeah.
You definitely have a transition period the first time you go from heel towing on the sim to real life. It is hard to learn on the sim because a lot of the cars that still have H patterns are not great models, at least on iRacing. So it is kind of hard to learn that on the sim and then take it to real life. But it's definitely better than trying to learn the technique and all of that at your first test. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I'm guessing heel and towing in your aunt's MR2 probably not quite what your aunt wants you to be doing with the MR2, right?
Yeah, probably not.
Oh boy! So how did that first test?
What's that?
I was gonna say, how does that first test go?
It went pretty well. We had I wasn't really there on pace the first test. Obviously, being 12 at the time, driving my first full size car for the first
Yeah,
time, driving my first full size race car for the first time, first manual, it's not going to be there right away.
sure.
But I improved a lot, and that was kind of the the stepping stone, or the kind of the I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. That kind of launched me into my progression throughout the next year or two, and it really gave me the the foundation that I needed to keep on building through that next test, and then to spec Miata as well. Um, and it really was a helpful test. It really wasn't. It wasn't great on paper. I wasn't super fast, but it really did mean a lot to my career.
Right. Are you getting coaching at that point in time? And if so, who's doing the coaching?
Yeah, so at that point it was Chris Nunes. Mazda sent him out with the team, and Chris Nunes was there to coach me through the weekend, and it was really cool working with him because he was also getting on the sim with me, teaching me a heel toe on the sim. So it was really cool to work with him, and before the weekend even started, and really just giving me advice on how to prepare for a weekend.
Right.
No, it wasn't a race weekend, but it was my first time having a weekend that takes that kind of physical strength. Quarter midgets, you don't require it. Quarter midgets don't require you to be that physically fit. Jumping into a full size car, it is not the same for sure.
At age 12, how tall are you, and how much did you weigh?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably five. I'm 5'9" now. Probably 5'3".
Okay.
115 maybe.
How intimidating is that first time? That first, you're strapping yourself into the car. What's going through your mind while you're sitting there on the grid of your first test in a full size race car when you've really never driven a car before?
It, it is kind of. I really don't remember exactly what was going through my mind. All I
Okay.
remember from that test and that moment was just being nervous and telling myself, like, just be smart, just go turn laps. It doesn't matter how fast or slow you are. And I remember, like, that first session, like Chris said, look, just put it into fourth gear and run around in fourth gear for the first session. Like, don't try and shift at all. Just learn the track, learn the car, and just go have fun for a session,
Yeah.
And that was really what I remember, is preparing myself mentally to take all the pressure off, and really just I do remember the nerves. Obviously, like, now I don't really get nervous on grid. Back then, my first couple of weekends, I
Sure.
was really nervous on grid, but also, like, just getting ready back at the trailer. Like, um, the nerves really started kicking in about a half hour before, and it just kept on ramping up until you get on the track, and then you really don't think about it anymore.
Yeah. Are you from a family of racers?
So my great grandpa raced back in the early 1900s. I don't know exactly when. And then my grandpa raced karts for a while. My dad never did race.
Okay.
So my dad never raced. He always wanted to, and just really never got a chance to. Um, and I got started through my first race. I saw my first NASCAR race on TV when I was 2 or 3, and that was like, it kind of hooked me. Like,
Yeah.
the way I learned my numbers is by, like, memorizing driver names and, like, all of that stuff. And that the NASCAR world is really what hooks me into racing in general. And but no, there really wasn't a ton of family correlation that dragged me in.
Yeah.
I guess if DNA counts, maybe, but
Sure.
at that age, no. I do run my grandpa's number 32, and I run a memorial sticker for my grandpa, my great grandpa, sorry, on every car I'm in. So I do try and keep their name or their number on the car in some way, because they definitely have. They're definitely part of the reason why I'm here. But no, not my family is not uh, a a huge racing family like some others may
Yeah.
be.
So how do you go from first 2 tests to Mazda factory driver?
So from that second test, that was a Mazda kind of like invitational test. I think they invited like 20 or 30 drivers out for just an SMX weekend test. Kind of the same format as the Mazda shootout, just without the prizes and
Sure.
the pressure, really. So I went to that. That went really well and learned a lot from that. Also, 2022 was really a down year for me. Those were the only two times I was in a car all year.
Okay.
And then we moved into 2023. I got my NASA full-time competition license at 13. Ran Spec Miata with NASA until I could join SCCA and run Spec Miata when I turned 14. And then from there, I got nominated for the Spec MX5 shootout I think the shootout was in November. So October of 2023, I was nominated. And for those that are unfamiliar, you submit a 5 to 10 minute video, a driver bio, and a racing resume to a Mazda panel of judges. 40 drivers are nominated, and then they pick 12 drivers to go to the actual shootout. The year I won it was in Carolina Motorsports Park.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to the shootout. The shootout went really well. I was in the top 3 consistently on pace. And really was just kind of myself that weekend. There were a lot of nerves going into that weekend for sure. I was really quiet on the plane. I remember with my dad going up there and was just really nervous going into the weekend. And as soon as I got on the track for the first time, I don't really know what it was, but something clicked. And that anxiety and those nerves really just kind of disappeared. And
Right.
I started driving like I had driven on the sim before. And my guts kind of took over from my brain, and my brain just shut off, and I just started driving. And I ended up being second fastest by the end of the weekend, and was chosen to be a 2024 Mazda factory driver.
And what does that mean? What do you get when you're a Mazda factory driver?
Mazda factory driver, you get 5 weekends fully covered from Mazda. Mazda provides you with the car, transport. The team managing the car was Kevin Sully and Slipstream Performance. They provide you with full coaching for the year. Justin Piscatel was our coach. And really that team of 2 and then the 3 drivers was one of the best teams that I have ever been on and probably will ever be on. We worked really well together, and Kevin knows Mazda better than almost anybody I can think of, and Piscatel is amazing with his coaching. And I learned a lot last year in Spec MX5 working with those 2. And it was really cool to see the relationship, the team dynamic between the 3 drivers and the 2 drivers, or the coach and Kevin from Mazda. It was really cool to see the team dynamic, because for me, we ran Spec Miata by ourselves the year before. We didn't really have a team that we raced with. It was all out of our own trailer. So it was fun to be on a team and have that team environment. And like I said, Kevin and Justin taught me more in that year than I ever could have imagined. It was really cool to see that. And that's one of the coolest things from the scholarship, is the experiences you get, and the people that Mazda provides at your service. Is nobody can provide anything better to you than Mazda themselves.
Yeah. We're going to continue the conversation in just a second. I want to take a second real quick and thank the folks that helped me do this. If you look over my shoulder, you'll see some logos that pop in and out of the screen there. Ray ESports is official sim racing league of Inside the SCCA. We love Ray ESports. They run a league mostly with grassroots racers, and most of those racers act like it's a real race. So, there's sometimes some hanky-panky going on these sim racings where people don't take it quite so seriously because they don't have to worry about paying for a car. But the race esports races on Tuesdays and over the weekends, a lot more respectful racing, kind of like it is on the real racetrack. Solo Performance Specialties, they do a great job of providing products and tires to the solo racing community. They go to a lot of the SCCA National Tour races, and they were at the Solo Nationals as well. Dave and his crew, great people down there. Also, it's Inside the SCCA presented by RaceSchool.com. Cannot forget that. RaceSchool.com raceschool.com, our presenting sponsor for all of this year and into next year. We really appreciate all those folks there. Actually, our podcast next week is going to be with one of their chief instructors, and looking forward to that. raceschool.com. Check them out as well. And, of course, RaceKeeper, the official in-car camera of Inside the SCCA. They do a great job as well. You can check out all of our partners, and you can find all of their information in our show notes. Just kind of scroll down the screen, and there's links to everybody in there. So check all of that out. Back with Kamden Hibbitt here on Inside the SCCA, presented by raceschool.com. And so you're through 2023. You're the factory driver in 2024. That's wrapping up. Actually, before we do that, tell me about high school. I understand you're a pretty good student.
Yeah, so I go to Big Walnut High School here in small town Sunbury, Ohio. I miss a lot of school, obviously, for racing. I missed, I believe, 30 days last year. It is hard to make up schoolwork. It is hard to balance this crazy life that I live, but I'm lucky to live it, you know. Not many 15-year-olds get the chance to drive race cars for a living and go to school and have an awesome family and a great place to live. And it's I am grateful for the life that I get to live, but it is pretty crazy busy with school and all the racing stuff and keeping up with friends and social media. But school is awesome. I have a lot of great friends that support me through the racing stuff, and you know, my teachers are super supportive of when I miss school. Like, they're cool with like me making up work. So the high school experience has been really good so far, and I'm probably going to miss more than 30 days this year, but hopefully no issues moving through the rest of high school.
My kid was a young actor out here in LA, and there's a lot of school that gets missed with that. So I understand. Even out here, a lot of young actors become homeschooled just because of that. So it's not easy, and I commend you for keeping up on your studies and everything. I understand you also I'm going to venture to guess that band geek is not an inappropriate term to use. What do you play?
I am in the school band. A lot of my friends are in it. It's actually why I started it. And it is kind of just an outlet for me to enjoy some time with friends and just be a part of the school in some way. I don't get to do any school sports because I don't get to do any school sports because of the scheduling conflicts. Right. So I started band when I was in middle school before I knew any better, and then just stuck with it with all my friends, and it is just a fun experience now for me, and it's just fun.
What do you play?
It's fun to be a part of the school in some way, for sure.
What do you play?
I'm a trumpet player. Yeah.
Nice. I'm a clarinet and saxophone player, so
nice.
I love it when I talk to band people. So, so what was your 2024 season like? How did it go for you?
It went pretty well. It got off to a slow start in Sebring for sure. There were a lot of nerves going into Sebring for sure on my end. I had never gotten an opportunity quite like what I was experiencing, and I went into Sebring very underprepared. Looking back on it now, I did not put in the preparation time that I needed to, and it kind of bit me a little bit. I was a mid-pack car all weekend. Sebring this year was a mess. It was rainy. It was cold. It was just kind of the show was awesome, but the weather was awful that weekend. And that was actually my first time ever driving in the rain. So Sebring first time rain experience was not fun for sure.
Right.
So we got through Sebring. Road Atlanta was next on the calendar. SMX didn't get a ton of green flag laps there. It was kind of a mess of a race, to be honest with you.
Right.
I had a great qualifying, put myself P3 for both the races, and again, my lack of experience caught up to me and made a mistake on the start, dropped me back, and the race ended under yellow in race one. And same thing on Sunday. The lack of rain experience, it just kind of bit me. I ended up, I think, 7th, on the race on Sunday.
Right.
But Road Atlanta was by far my favorite track of the season.
Sure.
I love that place it is my favorite track by far.
Yeah.
It is the best way I can describe it for those that haven't driven there. It is a roller coaster of a racetrack.
Yep.
That is the best way I can describe it. Road Atlanta was awesome. Not the performance that I was really looking for, but we moved on to, I believe Hallett was next for us.
Okay.
And Hallett was great. We finished 4th and 5th, I believe, at Hallett. Learned a lot. Hallett is a boring, and it's not a track that there's really no track on the Super Tour schedule that is quite like it.
Yeah, Hallett, there's no place to rest. You're always turning.
Yes, it is. Hallett is very physical.
Yeah.
After that weekend was the most physically exhausted I think I was all year.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there is no breaks.
No.
You get 2 straightaways that you get one upshift on of maybe 10 seconds, and then you're right back into hard breaks and lots of shifting, and it's very bumpy as well. So it's not easy on your body. It'll beat you up a little bit. It is hard to pass there. That is one thing that I struggled with a little bit, was making passes.
Yep.
But it was a positive weekend all around. And I think we started the season slow, but I learned a lot. There wasn't really I didn't have any podiums in the first 3 races, but there was a lot of moments where I think my driving was showing that capability. And that finally showed up at Mid-Ohio that next weekend. And we finished 2nd at Mid-Ohio and 4th in race 2. Mid-Ohio is my home track, so I had the most experience there. But Mid-Ohio was just a strong weekend. I put it on pole for both races.
Yep.
And it was my best weekend of the year by far. And it was really cool because we had somewhere 40 or 50 people out supporting me both races, because I lived 30 minutes from there. So
Sure.
it was really cool to see everybody at the track, and definitely boosted the spirits a little bit, and gave me a little bit more motivation to go out and perform. And Mid-Ohio was an awesome weekend. And then June Sprints, kind of the same thing as Sebring. It was a mess weather-wise.
Tell me about it.
It was. I think we had one session where it did not rain.
Yep.
At June Sprints. So it was a very wet weekend. Kind of the same deal though. Top 5 the whole weekend. But there wasn't really nothing special.
Yeah.
We were top 5, just kind of mid-pack, but I think SMX had 42 cars, I think, at June Sprints. So top 5 in that big of a field is awesome. You know, anybody who runs Spec Miata can tell you go finish top 10, top 15 at runoffs or June Sprints in Spec Miata against 60, 70 cars.
Yep.
That's a pretty good performance. So top 5 out of 42. I was happy with that. And then we moved on to runoffs, and runoffs was a struggle all weekend. We never could figure out the car. The track was changing all week, and we tried a lot of different setup changes, and it just never got better. We were, I don't know, 10th-ish really all week.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I ended up that race. I think it was 10th or 11th. We were just down about a second all weekend long, and I don't really know why, honestly. I still, to this point in the year, don't really know.
Yeah.
I just know we were fighting the car, and sometimes you have those kind of weeks. And unfortunately, that was the last race of the year for us, but you gotta kind of push through it.
Sure.
And that's what I did going into my next race, which happened to be in a Radical, but just got to put that in the rearview mirror and just move on. Sometimes the car's not going to handle well. We were really good at June Sprints, and then we went to runoffs 2 months later, and the car was not great. And we couldn't figure out why. We took the same exact setup back, and sometimes that's racing, and unfortunately, that's how it is some days. But we pushed through, and I think I ended up 7th on the Super Tour points to end the year. And with the start that I had, I was happy with that.
Sure.
You know,
and you're 15.
I'm 15. It was my first year of a full season points championship, and I didn't have a great start to the season. I dropped 4 races in the first 4 rounds, and it was like I really put the pressure on myself in the last half of the season to go out and perform. And I really learned a lot this year. My driving stepped up way more levels in this year than I could have ever imagined, and I think that's all thanks to the Mazda program. Kevin Stelly, Justin Piscatel, Josh Smith from Mazda, who actually gave me the opportunity to, who's I don't know the exact title. He's kind of the manager of the Mazda factory team operations. Right. So those 3 individuals really taught me, Josh on the business and the professional side of things, Justin Piscatel on the driving side, and Kevin on the engineering and mechanicals, like car setup wise. I took more steps in my career this year than I think I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
Even going into the Sebring, knowing that I was going to have these opportunities, I still don't think I knew how big this year would have been to my career. And I can't wait to have a fresh start next year in SMX. Knowing what I know now, I'm really excited to go into Sebring this year and have a fresh start and really take a step back and take it one race at a time and not be worried about performing for Mazda, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, the pressure is kind of off this year, and I'm really excited with what we're bringing to the table this year, and I think we're going to perform really well.
Cool. Cindy Henson is in the chat, and she asks, is college in your future, and do you see yourself racing while in college?
Oh, I appreciate the question. I don't know how to answer that. I think so. I think so. I'll answer it like that. I think it really does depend on where I end up in the next sophomore, so 2 or 3 years. I do think if I think if I'm not in the pro levels like MX5 Cup or like GT4, that kind of thing, I think I will end up going to college. I definitely want to go, just definitely as a backup plan, but at the same time, I think I think the way I look at it right now is I'll definitely prepare for college and take all the steps necessary to get ready. But I guess the deciding factor would be where I am in my racing career.
Right.
If I have a good shot at making it to IMSA WeatherTech or Pilot Challenge or SRO competition, then if I think college is going to limit me from potentially reaching my lifelong dreams, then I don't know if I will go right into college. If I think that I'm going to end up doing racing for fun for the rest of my life and not really as a job, then yes, I'll probably go as an engineer and have a full-time job working on an IMSA team as a race engineer.
Sure.
That is what I want to do if the driving thing obviously doesn't work out. And so the answer to that question is a solid maybe. I'll put it that way.
There you go. Yeah, I think college professors are probably less flexible when it comes to missing school to go racing than maybe high school teachers are. I dropped out of college. I probably shouldn't share it, but I dropped out of college to take a job, and my college advisors told me to quit, told me to go take the job because college will always be there. So, and there's just, if you're racing full time, that's going to take a lot of a commitment, and it would be really hard to do both successfully. And obviously, you want to race successfully if you've got those opportunities. And as expensive as college is, you don't want to kind of half-ass that because that could be an expensive experiment as well. So I completely appreciate your thought process.
And like you said, like you gotta the racing opportunities don't come along very often. So when you get one, you got to take it. Same thing with the David Cook opportunity in PRI. Like, if you would have told me that I would have gotten a Mazda test out of looking for a Legends car seat, and I would have told you you're crazy, you know? So, like you said, college will always be an option, and it's definitely one that I will keep in the back of my head for sure. And if things don't look like they're going to go on the route of a pro racing career in 2 years, then I'll probably go to college. But like you said, the racing opportunities do not come around very often. So when you get one, that is a really solid opportunity. You have to take advantage of it.
Well, I started college in 1988 and I graduated in 2016. So I definitely was on the extended plan. So I love it. So my next question comes, or the next comment I should say comes, and this is a great segue into our next bit here. Racing Prodigy says, "Let's go Kamden." Tell us about Racing Prodigy.
I appreciate the support, first of all. Great to see you guys listening. Racing Prodigy is an amazing program. For those that don't know, Racing Prodigy, the best way I can explain Racing Prodigy is they take sim racers and they turn them into pro race car drivers. For me, I'd already had a little bit of a taste of racing in the real world with Spec MX-5, but I had been on the sim training for Spec MX-5 in the Mazda world for several years when Racing Prodigy came along. Early in 2023 is when their esports competition started, I believe. And I started signing up for the Racing Prodigy tournaments just as another opportunity because, like we just mentioned, racing opportunities don't come along very often. But Racing Prodigy was giving out 32 of them through the sims, and I had to try and take advantage of anything that I could get. So I started driving in the esports competitions for Racing Prodigy. And through iRacing was able to be a golden ticket winner, a Prodigy Pass winner. They fly you out. If you're a Prodigy Pass winner, they fly you out to Atlanta MOTORSPORTS Park in the Radical SR1 that is behind me here. And you get basically the best way I can describe the Prodigy Week is an NFL combine for motorsports. That is the best way I can describe Prodigy Week. And it is a very cool experience. Let alone whether you get drafted into the real World Series or not, the ability to go to Prodigy Week and learn from the people that they have there. Max Pappas, Andrew Carbonell. I'm missing tons of names, but everybody, all the coaches that they have there, and the crew guys from Primal Racing that manage the SR1s. Even if you don't get drafted into the Real World Series, the opportunity to go to Prodigy Week is one that you will not get anywhere else. And I think Racing Prodigy I know Racing Prodigy is opening motorsports, and it is changing the way that drivers come into racing. You heard my story about meeting David Cook at PRI and all these different stories of drivers coming into motorsports. Racing Prodigy is on the path to make it a very common story of sim racing to real life. It's a really cool program, and I'm honored to be a part of it at the ground level. And it's just, there's really nothing like it. For those that have seen Gran Turismo, the movie, that is really similar to what is happening here with Racing Prodigy. And if you ever get an opportunity, and you have the opportunity now, there's esports competitions going on right now, with more coming soon. And Prodigy Week Season 2 is going to be happening in the coming months. And the opportunities that Racing Prodigy is providing there's more Racing Prodigy opportunities right now than General Motorsports will ever have in the next 10 years. So it's an amazing program. And for me to be a part of it at this level and get started early in the program it's an honor for sure.
So who did you race for at Prodigy Week?
So I am a Williams esports driver. So Williams Racing, the F1 team, the esports branch is the Racing Prodigy team in the SR1 Prodigy P3 Championship. So this past weekend, we were at NOLA Motorsports Park in the Radical SR1, the Williams esports Radical SR1. And it to be able to say that is
just cool?
Kind of mind-boggling. It's to have my name on a Williams car. It's like just saying that sentence is kind of crazy. You know what I mean? It is kind of a childhood dream for anybody to say at 15 years old, I had my name on a Williams esports Radical. Like that's really cool. But we had a really strong weekend. Williams esports is the team is great. Michael Preston, the engineer, Ben Hawkins, the team manager, and my teammates Nathan Saxon, Ciro Zambra, and David Dalton. We had a really strong weekend. One win, one loss in terms of the team competitions, but on my personal driving side, I won one race overall and finished third overall in race 2. And it was just a really strong weekend. I had a lot of fun in the radicals. I'm really excited. SR1s are starting to become a regional class in SCCA, I believe. So it's really cool to start seeing some more SR1s and radicals pop up at the SCCA regional level. Um, it is really cool to see radicals growing, but also the Racing Prodigy crew. Um, that program, I've said it a billion times, but that program is something that if you ever see an opportunity come up on your iRacing UI, you need to take advantage of it and get in those competitions, because you will never get another opportunity that is as good as that one.
Yeah. And it's not just, Williams doesn't just slap their name on a car. They are looking at those drivers for the potential of maybe something bigger and better down the road, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Williams drafts. So the Racing Prodigy draft happened in, I'm going to get my dates mixed up here, I believe May of last year, July of last year, sometime around there. So Williams Esports drafted. There were 6 teams at the draft. 32 drivers were eligible from Prodigy Week to be drafted, and 6 teams drafted 4 drivers. So 24 drivers got drafted to race in the P3 Championship. So these teams picked what drivers they wanted. And for Williams to be a team that picked me, it's really cool to know that they saw something in me and that they wanted to try and bring me on board for the P3 Championship, and who knows, maybe something else down the road.
Yep.
There's obviously no guarantees of that, but just the experience and the eyeballs that are on the P3 Championship, and to be able to put driver for Williams Esports on your resume is a big deal.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the biggest points of being a Williams driver, is being able to put that name on your your racing resume.
Yep. Yep. We got a lot to cover here, and I try not to go over an hour, so let's keep pushing along here. Court Schmidt from the chat: I love seeing your progression when the driver gig does work out. Very confident. When the driver gig does work out, what's your dream seat, in which race car, and in which series? What does that look like?
It's a good question. Thanks, Court. Man, putting me on the spot. I think the dream opportunity is IMSA WeatherTech Porsche 963, the GTP car.
There you go.
I think that's kind of the dream, or like the end goal, I guess. Obviously, there is what, 8, 12 drivers in the whole world that get that opportunity.
Yep.
But dream big, I guess, and who knows? Maybe someday down the road I'll get somewhere close to that. But yeah, that's probably the dream opportunity.
Nice. You've got a pretty substantial social media presence. I don't know who on your team, how much of it you do yourself, but how important when Williams Esport or Mazda Shootout, when these groups are looking at who they're going to pick to give these opportunities to, I guess there's 2 questions. How important is it to have a presence? And then how important is it not to be an idiot on social media?
Both are very important. I'll put it that way. I think the second one comes first.
Yeah.
I think you have to be smart with social media before you can get a presence on or an influence. So I do think the second one is to an extent more important, but in the long run, you have to be able to build your influence. The best way, yeah, I don't know. The social media thing is very important now more than ever. Racing teams are looking at social media because of how much it means, bringing in funding, and also it's just kind of a sneak preview of how you handle yourself.
Exactly. Yep.
And to answer the question of who does it, during the week, it's mainly me. I do majority of it during the week, and when we get to the race weekend, I pass it off to my dad.
Got it.
Because my focus kind of shifts to driving, doing all of that stuff. But yeah, during the week, it's mainly me doing most of the. My dad does most of the editing, if not all of the editing on the videos. But all the comments and the posts and all of that stuff, the stories, all of that stuff will be done by me.
Great.
On the Instagram side, and my dad handles the Facebook, just because I've never taken the time to learn it. I never wanted to learn Facebook. He never wanted to learn Instagram. So it's like, we'll split that down the middle.
There you go.
But yeah, so the social media thing is a big deal. You have to be able to be smart on social media, and that is one way to grow your following, and it makes it easier to finding funding is never easy, but it does make it that 1% easier, and it makes that one company that may give you 5-10 grand for your racing program, they might find you on social media, and that's a really big deal.
Right. So what does 2025 look like for you guys?
2025 is going to be a big year for us. The goal is to run a full season of SMX again, and run that. We don't really know who with yet. That announcement will be coming soon. But we're planning on running a full SMX season again with the SCCA Super Tour. And then on the P3 Racing Prodigy side, that series will go through March. And hopefully we do well enough in that series to move up to P2, which I believe will be coming later this summer, moving into fall, is what I've been hearing for P2. So that is the big thing. Excuse me. Obviously, SMX is going to be 8 weekends or so on the Super Tour side, and running some regional stuff as well, and some local stuff. Probably another 5 or 6 weekends, just for more seat time. And then the Prodigy 3 Championship, we have 4 weekends left in the P3 Championship, and then P2 will be another 5 or 6 weekends if we end up making it to that point. And then we're looking at trying to potentially find some opportunities whenever they come up, whether that's a Champ Car weekend or an endurance racing weekend with SCCA, or if it, we're just trying to look for opportunities. There's no training tool better than seat time, and that is something that we take we're very grateful of any opportunity that comes our way. And we've even looked at some like Pro Series, MX5 Cup opportunities for like a one-off weekend, just to get started on the pro path and just kind of see what it's like. So 2025 is a big season for us. Lots of racing coming to Motorsports Nation, and it's going to be a fun season for sure.
If you're watching, like, subscribe, appreciate it. That would be awesome. And of course, hit the little bell when you subscribe so you get warned or alerted to, not warned, alerted to our next shows. Another question. Quickly, because we're running out of time, what's the difference between P3 and P2? I'm guessing it's a faster car with a bigger series?
Yeah, so Prodigy 3 is the series that I'm in now. It's like I'm going to compare it to F3.
Okay.
The F3 part of Racing Prodigy. P2 details have not been released yet, so we don't know what car it's going to be in or anything, but it's like the next step up is the best way I can describe it. So the F2 part of the ladder of Racing Prodigy.
Terry Moore says, great interview, Kamden. You are so well spoken.
Appreciate it.
So as we wrap up, we want to talk real quick. You've got some sim racing this weekend coming up, right?
Yeah, SCCA virtual runoffs on iRacing. I'm going to be running 4 of the 6 classes. Spec Miata, Spec Racer Ford 3, GT4, and Formula V. So make sure to stay tuned on our social media. Facebook is Hibbitt Motorsports. Our Instagram is @TeamHibbitt. And I'll be streaming it live on our Twitch @TeamHibbitt as well. So it's a big weekend for us in the sim world with the virtual SCCA runoffs. I can't wait going back to Red America in the virtual world. Spec Miata obviously has a ton of draft. Spec Racer has a ton of draft. Formula V has a ton of draft, and GT4 is just awesome racing all around. Not a lot of draft, but you don't find much better racing than GT4 racing. So I'm really excited. They're putting in a lot of work for this weekend. So make sure to check us out on social media for more updates on that. I believe that goes live at 10 a.m. this weekend on, like I said, I'll be streaming it on Team Hibbitt Twitch, and it'll be on the iRacing YouTube page as well for the broadcast. So any SCCA fans of the SCCA runoffs in real life, make sure to check it out, because it's going to be some awesome racing, 6 hours of wall-to-wall coverage for SCCA and iRacing this weekend. It's going to be fun.
Nice. All right, here's your shot. Thank the folks that helped to get you where you are, and thank all those sponsors and everybody who's helping you out. This is your moment.
There is a lot of people that I need to mention. I'm going to start with my family, my mom and my dad. Two grandparents asked questions or commented. That was cool. There's so many people I need to name. David Cook from Racing Prodigy, the whole Racing Prodigy team, Jimmy Rowland, David McCammon, Kent Stacy, the whole Racing Prodigy team for giving me that opportunity. And obviously the Mazda program as well. Kevin Stelly, Justin Piscatel, Josh Smith, Jonathan Black, Jonathan Applegate. I'm sure I'm missing some names as well. My teammates, Ethan Jacobs and Elio Meza. It was an amazing year with SCCA, and I want to thank you guys with SCCA and on the broadcast crew as well. You and Greg do an amazing job with the SCCA broadcast of the Future Super Tour races, and go back and watch most of them to see what I did not so great and what I could learn from. But no, they're great programs. And on the sim side, my parallel racing group teammates, Morgan Burkhardt, John Carlos Schooler, Nathan Nicholson, everybody that's helped me on the sim side with parallel racing group, Williams Esports, Ben Hawkins, Michael Preston. You guys are amazing. And finally, all my partners let me do this year as well. Byers Automotive, Rainier Construction, Aussie Sales, AutoSmarts Radio, Team Spirit Custom Trailers, Westerville Automotive. I couldn't do this without everybody that I just mentioned. There really is no driving in general without everybody that I just mentioned, and everybody that allows me to live out my dreams and achieve my goals. I'm so grateful, and thank you for having me on. It was really an honor to be here and share my story a little bit. And if you ever need me back on to continue the story, I'd be more than happy to.
Well, yeah, as I always tell the folks, if you've got news to break, you're welcome to pop on and share that with us at any time, and we will obviously keep in touch. And we have several people who've been on the show more than once, and I am pretty certain that you will probably be one of those. So, Kamden, thanks a lot. Good luck. I'll see you at Sebring. Pop on up to the booth if you want to, and at least say
Absolutely.
hi. And it'd be great to catch up with you and all of that. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you everybody for watching and listening. It's a great show. Thanks everybody.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Inside the SCCA, presented by RaceSchool.com. If you like what you hear, subscribe to the RacingWire Podcast Network so you won't miss any episodes. Comment, especially if it's a good one. Follow us on social media to find out who our next guest is, and leave a question on Twitter. It's Race Announcer. That's pretty simple. Also, there's a new Inside the SCCA every week. I'm Brian Bielanski. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and go play with cars.
Hi, I'm Dorsey Schrader, and this is Inside the SCCA.